All right, everyone. I guess Tommyrobinson has finally been released from the Gulag over there in the Rainy Island for the crime of conducting journalism. Really, I guess his initial crime was conducting journalism. Then his crime was like, I don't even know, I guess contempt of court or something like that, because he dared to criticize Her Majesty's judicial system or whatever. Really weird legal system over there. So for the last couple of months, he's been, languishing in prison, and he looks visibly like a lot thinner. I think what happens is he's obsessed with the idea he'll get poisoned, and he might not be entirely wrong. Like, it seems like they keep putting him deliberately in prisons where people he's critical of are the majority. There's probably a reason for that. The funny part is, like, in the UK, it's like the initial charge against him is like, well, we can't conduct things fairly. We can't have a fair judicial system if you're recording outside this trial venue. Now, of course, here in the other side of the pond, if I stand outside of a court, some plaintiffs are filing in or something, I can record. I can't get in their way. I can't physically jostle them. I can't, scream at them or something. But if I'm across the street, yeah, I can take my fucking smartphone and record and stream and stuff. Nobody can do anything about it. I'm on public property. I'm out in the open. I'm not impeding anybody's movement. That's a big thing. You can't impede anyone's movement on that same property. You stand in the sidewalk with a sign, that's fine. You got to move aside if people are coming through, so be very courteous. Robinson didn't impede anyone. He wasn't, saying anything wrong. He was just recording outside of the court. He didn't try to break and enter into the court or harass anybody. He gets arrested for this. They're like, whoa, you're not allowed to stream outside of this venue. You might taint a jury pool. Well, then why the hell, can I ask you something? Why didn't you do what here in the U.S. would be done in a higher profile case? You have a van with blacked out windows, drive them inside of the building, and you unload them inside so that nobody can record who it is. But they didn't think of that. I guess, are you too fucking cheap to retrofit your building to be able to do that? Or you could have taken him to a different place. Why did it have to be that court? Because apparently Robinson got shuffled around from place to place during judicial proceedings in order to make him suffer more. So he looks like he's lost 15, 20 pounds, probably from lack of food. I would imagine losing sleep as well. He doesn't look particularly good. I'm sure he'll bulk up now. Like, I would think the first thing he probably did is eat a full English, or two of them. If his body at this point can even take that caloric load. How many calories is in a full English, by the way? I'd hazard a guess, probably about 1,500. Enjoy a cheeky nosh, mate. Or whatever you say over there. I know you add tomatoes and mushrooms and all the good stuff to it, too. It does look delicious. I'd like to buy Robinson one. Anyway, the poor dude gets released from the Gulag not looking very great. He probably was prevented from contact with the outside world mostly. He was probably attacked in prison. Like, I think when he first got there, didn't they try to make up some story like he went up to one of the older prisoners to try to throw his weight around and got beaten up? And probably what actually happened is the second he walked in, he got jumped. Probably. But I doubt the British government and the police they're not going to tell you the truth about that. Because then his fans will cry martyr, number one, or worry about him dying or something, demand reform. They'll get uppity. And we can't have that happening. If people knew the truth, then they would demand change on one end, or they might generate sympathy among other groups of people. Well, at the very least, he doesn't deserve to be harassed or beaten in prison. It's very funny, though. You're talking about the fairness of the prison system, and then you have someone who fundamentally just conducted journalism in there for several months suffering. Putting him deliberately in a diverse prison where, people who probably it would be like imagine this. Imagine that you took Louis Farrakhan and put him in the prison with the highest concentration of white skinheads. Or something like that. I'm not comparing Robinson with Farrakhan, but it'd be similar. Or you take someone who is a notorious very far left or very far right, you put him in a prison whose political and social demographics are just the total opposite of their views. It would be considered deliberate, especially if you had to move them, further away to do so. With Robinson, I guess the idea was they wanted him in a more secure facility, but I guess the nearest secure facility was a very diverse, vibrant place to be. I'm sure that makes it, by the way, a much more hospitable place than the boring and homogenized jail cell he was initially in. I feel sorry for the dude. You don't have to agree with his views. This is something I have to say this constantly because it always seems to be the case. For the most part, I only agree with my own views. Like, even with other libertarians, sometimes I clash. I know that there are people who are libertarian and they're more on the open borders side, and I don't agree with them on that. Or you'll see someone who's kind of classically liberal, but like on one issue, like on guns or something, they'll be more on the actual, like the modern left, and they'll be more in favor of registration confiscation, and I disagree with them. But I don't want to see them abused either. I think they should be able to speak, and I don't think that they should be attacked or anything. Physical violence I disavow as a political method, as anything but a last resort. And I think that people tend to use it as a first resort, which shows that they're nuts usually, that they lack self-control. As far as Tommyrobinson, the fact that he's the founder of the English Defense League or something like that, he's a racist. Well, you know, that has nothing to do with him recording outside of the trial venue and the idea that it was bullshit that they would haul him in. If a normal person, no political affiliation, were the one recording that, do you think they would have gotten hauled in? I don't think they would have. And the courts overturned the initial verdict, and then they put him in jail anyway, I guess, for violating parole or contempt. I don't even remember exactly what they fucking hustled him in there on. And it's a hatchet job. The idea, I think they'll probably try to get him back in prison again before Brexit. They're probably terrified he'll speak out against that, against the Remainers, probably. They're afraid of the dude. I mean, there's a reason why they keep trying to headhunt him. If he crosses the street the wrong way, he chewed the wrong gum, his fork was a little bit too sharp that night, qualifies as an assault weapon under Britain's diversity laws, then they'll drag him into a cell. And that's basically what they keep doing. They want to silence him. They probably wish he would die in prison. Well, they don't want him dead in prison. I said this before. The idea is he'd become like a martyr to a lot of people if he died in prison. So they just keep pulling him in and making sure that he gets sleep deprived and like starved half to death. They want him to suffer. They're hoping that he'll worry enough about his own safety and his family's safety so that he'll just back off. He'll withdraw from the battlefield and go silent and become, a very private individual. They're hoping that he'll stop speaking out. So long as he continues to speak, they'll keep trying to abuse him. And they do this to everyone. This happens here in the United States too. Remember the time that Obama tried to spy on, to dig dirt up on several AP journos who he thought were too critical of him? You haven't heard much about that case lately. I think that was 2005, if I remember correctly. I mean, not 2005, 2015, if I remember correctly. It's a long time ago, but it did happen. Michael Hastings got a little bit too close to some dude who I believe might be in a jail cell at the moment. That was mysterious, but you don't remember much about that either. And pretty soon, most people that aren't sort of with it, with the Tommyrobinson thing, will forget about that also. They forget about the little abuses that go on, with the power systems of the world. But he's definitely been abused. From the outside looking in, the very fact that you can get jailed for reporting, for doing actual citizen journalism, is hilarious to me. It's not even, technically, isn't it even not citizen journalism? Doesn't he work for Rebel News? I think he took a position with one of these groups it's not based in the UK, but it's essentially an accredited or at least an organized news organization, syndicated. Well, I would think that would give him some degree of legal protection under even UK laws, but I suppose they suspend that with regards to poor Tommy. That's about all. Peace out.